Dave Ramsey says IUL is crap, a ripoff, and if you end up doing it, it's simply because you're a dupe and haven't investigated it thoroughly enough. He says all this primarily for two reasons: high fees and surrender charges. I've tackled his false claims that IULs have high fees in lots of other videos, so today we're going to tackle his claim about the IUL's surrender charges. By the way, Dave Ramsey says that if you have an IUL, you should surrender it immediately, which would, of course, cause you to incur the brunt of those surrender charges, which is precisely why he recommended you not to do the IUL in the first place. Just a little bit of circular reasoning to start off your day. First of all, do IULs have surrender charges? The answer is yes. They're typically higher in the first few years, and they reduce gradually over the course of 10 or 15 years, depending on which company you use. The reason why companies have surrender charges is because these policies are relatively expensive to get off the ground. So the company reserves the right to not lose their short should 7 years into the contract, for example, you change your mind on the whole proposition and run for the border. But the question becomes, is the surrender schedule something that should weigh on your decision to do an IUL? And the answer to this question in most cases is no. Here's why. I've long said that you shouldn't do an IUL unless you're planning on keeping it until death do you part. And that way, starting an IUL is a bit like getting married. And for that reason, you should investigate your alternatives and make sure you settle down with the right IUL. In short, if the IUL really is a 30 to 50 year proposition, then you shouldn't really be all that concerned if you can't access 100% of your cash in the first 10 to 15 years. Consider what would happen if Dave Ramsey adopted the same approach about the taxes and penalties in your 401k. After all, those function very much like a surrender charge in your IUL. Consider this. If you're 40 years old and have $500,000 in your 401k, you can't really touch that money until you're 59 and a half, unless you do want to pay those taxes and penalties. Let's say, for example, that you take $100,000 out of your 401k at age 40. You'll pay the penalty, that's $10,000, plus tax at your marginal tax rate. Let's call that 24% federal and 6% state. That's $30,000. So all told, you just paid $40,000 in taxes and penalties on that $100,000 401k for early distribution. And guess what? The penalty schedule doesn't reduce over time. It actually gets worse if you consider that you're likely to bump up into higher tax brackets as your income grows and compounds over time. Furthermore, the IUL surrender charges occur during the first 10 to 15 years of the policy, which are so crucial to the growth of the IUL. Whether you're investing in an IUL or a 401k or IRA, these are the years when you should least want to access these dollars. Doing so would interrupt the growth and compounding of those dollars and ultimately impact how much money you can distribute in retirement years down the road. In other words, like traditional retirement plans, IULs are generally long-term propositions. Don't start an IUL if your plan is to take the money out in the first 10 to 15 years. If you need liquid savings in the short term, you're much better off growing that money in a taxable account. Those dollars won't grow as efficiently because of the yearly taxation, but you will have full liquidity on those dollars in the short term. In short, if Dave Ramsey has a problem with the IUL surrender charges, he should likewise have a problem with all the taxes and penalties you'll pay on your traditional retirement accounts over much longer periods of time. If you begin your IUL with the idea that it's a long-term proposition and that it only really makes sense if you're planning on keeping it until death do you part, then the surrender charge is no longer a barrier to entry. If you further consider that the surrender charges decline dramatically over the first 10 to 15 years of the contract, while the taxes and penalties potentially increase over the life of your 401k or IRA, then the sting of those surrender charges begins to fade. So not only do IULs not have high fees, but the surrender charges are much less punitive than traditional IRS-sponsored retirement plans. All that said, I'm not holding my breath that Dave Ramsey will change his mind on IUL anytime soon. Finally, we must remember that the IUL only really works as part of a balanced, comprehensive approach to tax-free retirement. It should be utilized in concert with your Roth IRA, Roth 401k, and Roth conversion. Make it your goal to get to the 0% tax bracket in retirement. Why is the 0% tax bracket so important? Because if tax rates double, 2 times 0 is still 0. Now that's what I call the power of 0. If you want to learn more about how to incorporate Index Universal Life into a balanced, comprehensive approach to tax-free retirement, be sure to check out my tax-free toolkit. You can download it for free at taxfreetoolkit.com. If you're a financial professional and want to learn how to become a certified Power Zero advisor, head over to powerzero.com and opt into my free 3-part video series. By the way, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section below. I respond to every single one of them personally. And don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the bell so you never miss a video. This is David McKnight. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.